What causes air pollution in Washington, D.C. today?
Air pollution is one of the worst pollutions in the world. Air pollution can be man-made or naturally occurring. The main sources of air pollution are stationary, area sources, natural sources, and agricultural sources. Here are some of the experts and their opinions in regard of air pollution.
When I think of sort of traditional air pollution, I think of that giant plume of black smoke coming out of the top of a smokestack. That's the most sort of obvious example of air pollution.
I think air pollution, car pollution is a big deal in a city like Washington, D.C. We're a metropolitan city where there's a lot of people. Of course, breathing and really having enjoyment of life has to do with the quality of air. I think car pollution and air pollution are big issues in Washington.
I guess what comes to my mind when I think about air pollution is the big difference between the level of pollution in the city versus in the country. So where I live, where I'm from in Texas, there's not as many buildings and houses, and there's not as many cars driving around, so the air seems a lot pure and cleaner than it does here. But in DC, there's a lot of exhaust and a lot of cars, a lot of trucks, a lot of things happening, so it just by default makes a lot more pollution.
First, stationary and area sources are caused by chemicals and manufacturing industries. Stationary sources are divided by the major and minor depending on the magnitude of their emission. Major stationary sources are electric power plants, phosphate processing plant, pulp, and mills and municipal waste combustors. The second stationary source is minor. The sources are mostly alphas plants, concrete batch plants, and bulk gasoline plants. Stationary sources of air pollution are emission sources that do not move.
There are lots of different sources of air pollution, and that's one reason why it's hard to improve air quality, is because almost all factories, even small operations, emit air pollution, and also automobiles emit air pollution as well. But if I had to identify the biggest sources of air pollution, I would say that they're coal-fired power plants.
I guess, I don't pretend to spend all my days thinking about what causes pollution or air pollution, but if I had to guess, I'd say a few things. I think cars on the road, the exhaust causes pollution.
I think the biggest cause are the big semi-trucks that emit air pollution when they're, especially the ones that run on diesel, which just go straight into the air, it seems, for me, and then cars also, I would say.
May cause air pollution or car pollution would be restaurants or other businesses that have a lot of waste, and that comes off as gas and emissions, and that would be the other thing.
The second of air pollution is agricultural sources that occur in the raising of animals and crops. These sources can generate emission of gas, particulate matter, and chemical compounds. For example, animals confined to a barn or area produce large amount of manure. This manure gives off various ammonium into the air. The ammonia comes from animal houses and manure storage areas. Animals are useful and harmful because they help us, but they are also a reason of air pollution.
Another important wrinkle is that the way that air pollution affects our health is it affects us strongly, but it's not like getting punched in the face, right? If I step up and hit you, it's very obvious how I just hurt you. If you live beside a factory and maybe it doesn't smell right, or maybe it doesn't smell good, or maybe it's hard to breathe, but the injury doesn't seem as serious initially, or maybe it's something that you get used to over time, and then 10 years later get cancer, you might not make the connection as immediately as you might if I dump trash on your front lawn, or if sometimes the way that it affects people is slowly over time, and so I think people underestimate the effects.
Natural sources of pollution are caused by volcanoes that give off particulate matter and gases. Volcanoes also produce sulfur, chloride, and ash in the air. The source is not caused by people or their activities. Also, some natural substances such as dust, pollen, and ash pollute the air. Some power plants that burn coal and oil to produce energy also create a huge amount of pollution. Unfortunately, some of the natural air pollution that affects our weather and environment we cannot control. Lastly, air pollution is caused by different things and sources in the world. The causes of air pollution are natural sources, stationary sources, and agricultural sources. We can't control some of the human activities that cause air pollution, but we cannot control natural causes of air pollution. Air pollution is one of the worst pollutions in the world, and as humans, we must try our best to help prevent it as much as possible.